Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are all well. It is the third Thursday of the month, and with that comes the monthly series of Women in Law, series that is presented by the East Africa Law Society, Women Lawyers Committee. Each month, we interrogate topics that are relevant and enhance the social, business, and professional development of our members who are drawn from all over East Africa. I'm your host for today. My name is Angela Munga Mwadumbo. I'm an advocate practicing in Nairobi. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm also the chairlady of the East Africa Law Society Women Lawyers Committee. My co-host today is Ms. Judith Zebedayo from Tanzania. Judith, introduce yourself to our members before we go on. Judith? Okay. As she's logging in, maybe before we start, some housekeeping rules or issues. We want to have a very interactive session because we have a fire panel. So feel free to post your views, your comments or observations in the chat section. For today's webinar, we shall first have the panelists making their presentations. Then we'll have a plenary session thereafter. So, but in the meantime, you can post your questions in the Q&A tab. Our panelists will answer them as we continue, even before we get to the question and answer sections, before we get to the question and answer session. So our topic for today is all about creating new norms, specifically opportunities for women in sports. We know that sports is big business. In fact, something like football is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it plays a huge role in the economy and the cultures of many countries and many areas. Sports has the power to change the entire society because it fosters unity, breeds character development, and it also opens up opportunities for leadership and development, and it is also another opportunity for transforming gender norms. In sports, however, it is mostly male-dominated. It's therefore important to have female role models in the corporate boxes and the boardrooms as it is to have those. It is just as important to have women in the boardrooms and in decision-making areas in sports, just as it is to have them in the fields. However, in most contexts and in most areas, the world of sports remains plagued by the same gender inequalities that we see in other areas in the society. For example, if you look at the team managers, we have very few female team managers. In fact, most women teams are also managed by men. Leadership and decision-making are the biggest challenges facing sports in its progress towards gender equality. Women are particularly underrepresented in sports leadership, if not almost absent. While there has been progress in terms of women equal participation in actual sports, there is certainly need for improvement in terms of leadership and the decision-making areas due to structural. This has been caused by structural barriers, cultural practices, lack of awareness in this area, and capacity gaps in education, networking, and resources. Although we have some individual women who have overcome these obstacles and achieved great success in sports leadership, for example, our keynote speaker, we still have a long way to go in terms of women securing equal opportunities, especially in sports leadership and in the corporate side of sports. And we also need to encourage women to shape the future of sports by breaking down the barriers that are most commonly experienced by women who seek to venture into sports management or who seek opportunities in sports. So to discuss this topic today, we have a very exciting panel of experts that has been drawn from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and South Sudan. They will expand on our topic for today. So our first speaker for today, who is our keynote speaker, is Ms. Cynthia Mumbo. Before I introduce the keynote speaker, my co-host is here. Judith, you can introduce yourself to our members. Judith.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair Lady, and my apologies. My name is Judith Zebedari Nyaseba. I am an advocate and founding partner of Binari Legal Chamber, which is located in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. I'm also a member of Women East Africa Women Committee and Tanganyika Law Society. I hope our panelists and especially participants will be able to enjoy this session and learn a lot of things from them. And thank you very much. I hope we will enjoy the session. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
You're welcome. That is my co-host for today, Ms. Judith from Tanzania. So our keynote speaker today is Ms. Cynthia Mumbo. She will address us on the business of sports and how to identify opportunities for advocates in sports. Now, Ms. Cynthia Mumbo has senior management, executive, federation, and sports operation experience, reflecting a host of capabilities. She joined her expertise and experience in forming and leading the Sports Connect Africa. And she has built her career on the foundation of relationship building, and its importance has guided how she works with stakeholders within the sporting and corporate environment. In January 2021, Cynthia ran for president of the Kenya Basketball Federation, which is a first for women in Africa. She was also the first woman to be certified by the International Basketball Association Academy as a FIBA manager. And in the course of her career, Cynthia has honed her skill and knowledge base in both sports and management. She has worked for both local and international brands, including Firestone, Diageo, and Menengai Oil Refineries Limited. In fact, she's very well known in the African sporting fraternity. Cynthia is the founder and the CEO of Sports Connect Africa, which was founded in 2012 and is involved in connecting sports stakeholders all over Africa and internationally. For her qualifications, she has a certification from the Babson Graduate School in Entrepreneurial Studies. She has a bachelor's degree in sports management from the Wits Business School and certification from International Basketball Federation, together with a diploma in marketing from Makini College. Over to you, Cynthia. We are ready to hear about the business of sports. Karibu sana.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon from wherever you are. Thank you so much, Angela, for this invitation, and to everybody who has made this possible. Thank you for the East African Law Society. I'm honored to be amongst what we on the other side of the world call the learned friends. It's a great honor to be amongst all of you today. As Angela has shared with you, My name is Cynthia Mumbo. I'm the founder and CEO of Sports Connect Africa. I'm very passionate about our continent. I'm passionate about sports, and I'm passionate about young people. More so, I'm passionate about being a positive influence to young people on the continent, and to be able to use sports from a commercial perspective to build our economies and to change lives. So maybe if you can give me the option of sharing my screen. I have something I'd like to share.
Achilles, enable our presenter, enable our panelists to share the screen. Achilles, or anyone from the Secretariat. Have you been enabled?
I'm not seeing that option. Oh, there it is. Yes.
Okay, proceed.
All right. So I will do this just a second.
Yes, we can see the screen.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Right. So I'll dive into it. And when we say sports is money, sports is life. Usually I like being interactive. I'd have loved to be able to talk to guys and ask a few questions, and maybe you can respond in the comment section. Which local team do you support? If you're from Tanzania, if you're from South Sudan, if you're from Kenya, if you're from Uganda, please comment and let me know which local team you support. And if you support the English Premier League, which English team you support. I'd like to know that, and then we can have a discussion around that as well when we're finishing. So the business of sport: what, where, when, how, why, who. I'll show a few pictures, because when we talk about the business of sport, we're talking about generally the flow of money. We're talking about marketing. We're talking about communication. We're talking about player engagement. We're talking about fan engagement. The conversation is very wide. We're talking about partners. We're talking about contracts. We're talking about stadia, and we're talking, infrastructure. We're talking about development. Sports is wide. Any one of us that can relate to this picture? Again, just a quick show of hands, or a quick yes in the comments section. This is one of those events that happened in Africa that we don't forget. I think there are two events in the world of sport that we never forget: the World Cup and the Olympics. And this was taken at the World Cup in South Africa, in the first time that the World Cup was held in Africa. There's so much that you can see in this picture. You can see the vuvuzelas, you can see flags, you can see people from all walks of life, you can see jerseys, you can see the stadium. There's so much that you can see in there. And every single piece of that puzzle has a commercial element to it. So I'll define the sports industry as a market in which people, activities, business, and organizations involved in producing, facilitating, promoting, and organizing any activity, experience, or business enterprise focused on sports. And commercialization is really the commercialization of these activities in sports. So I talked about the value of sports business. And I usually love this slide, because whenever we talk about this, I try to, have the conversation and ask, if sport is this valuable, if this is the value of sports across the globe, 73.9 billion, and I believe it's so much more, because I know for a fact that the team New York Knicks in the US, in the NBA, is about the value of this. I want to believe it should have been trillion and not necessarily billion. It's $1 trillion business, huge when you talk about merchandise, clothing, all of that combined. But then let's come to Africa and ask, what is the value of sports business in Africa? And what is the value of sports business in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda? how do we have this conversation? What is the value? And can we be able to say that we have a thriving sports industry without understanding the definition of value? I'll jump in quickly to, from the value conversation and say what creates this value. What types of businesses are there within the sports industry? So you have sports agencies. Of course, you have sports law, and sports law touches on all these other industries. So you have esports, which has become so huge. Only 2 years ago, there was a tournament where a young lad won $6 million while sitting in his room somewhere and playing against somebody else across the world. So esports is big business. When you talk about teams and leagues and managing players, managing the league itself, the federations, you talk about fan engagement, you talk about technology in sports, you talk about player management, venue management, the list is endless. And in every angle, there's definitely a conversation around sports, sports law. So I'll move to the next slide. When we talk about business, you cannot talk about business and delivering value. Who are we delivering value to? We're delivering value to different stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders in sports? For me, there are two critical stakeholders. Those who are on the pitch, the athletes, and those who are off the pitch, the fans. So if those two do not, if those two are not satisfied, it doesn't matter. Whenever you go to, the estate football leagues or the football games, just the basic ones in our homes, there are two, the two do not miss. You can miss coaches, you can miss, every other stakeholder, but you always have those players who are, within the pitch playing. There's a goalkeeper there, there's a guy with the football there, and you'll have those guys on the sidelines who are cheering on their team. You'll never miss those two. And that's the basis of sports, that's the basic space of sports. But then as you move, into the community, as you move from the community to now professional amateur sports, from amateur sports to professional sports, you then realize that, sports is a business. And if it's a business, how do you deliver value to these different stakeholders? Beyond the player and the fans, who are the other stakeholders? You have government. Government has some role to play. You have, maybe you can also throw in examples there as I speak about this. Who else do you consider stakeholders? You have the coaches, you have sponsors, you have the media, you have a whole host of different stakeholders. Now, how do you deliver value to these different stakeholders? You talk about, the support activities. When you talk about sports, you're talking about infrastructure. You cannot have a team without a field, or you cannot have games without a stadium. You talk about human resource management. Who's going to manage the teams? Who's going to manage the back end? What we call in basketball spaces, we call it the back office or the front office, right? Who's facing the fans? You talk about technology. Today, you can't talk about sports and not talk about an application somewhere that, engages the fans. Where I'm a National fan, it's a difficult team to support, guys, but I'm very strongly in there. I get all my information from the app. I get, to know, I'm a fan of Yanga, and my friends from Tanzania, I know there's a very big rift between Yanga and Simba. I'm a Yanga fan, so I have the Yanga app. I get to interact with Yanga. If I'm watching football now, as much as, there's DSTV, which is technology in itself, I can watch games on YouTube. I can watch games on, different platforms. Technology has made sports even more accessible. You talk about managing players and fitness and all of that. There's technology that helps, managing the data. You talk about fans. How do you understand a fan? How do you engage with a fan? As much as I'm looking at this, this app, On the back end, the team management is able to tell what time I log into the app, how do I interact, and this is, helps inform decisions. And of course, you talk about procurement, and like any other business, inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing, sales, and service, right? So all of this will, once you have all these primary activities and support activities input in there, then you can be able to talk about your margin and talk about what the value is that for sports. Now, I wanted to spend a little bit of time on this slide. When you talk about that value proposition and you come back and talk about, the core of what sports business is, this is what we call the sports diamond, right? And when you look at this, you can see the green arrows. The green arrows show you the flow of money, right? The flow of resources. So fans pay for TV, through audience subscription, and they pay for either live broadcast or, live streams and things like that. Fans also pay to go and watch the game in the stadium. So watching the game in the league. Fans can, follow teams, so they can, be members of a team. Like, for example, I'm a member of Gor Mahia. So for Gor Mahia, every year I pay 1,200 as a membership fee. So you can be able to see that. Now, as lawyers, my thought is at every space, at every transaction, every conversation here, there is, a legal sort of binding transaction. I buy merchandise from professional league or from the teams. Now, as a league, I am paid by sponsors, brands. Brands pay me as a sponsorship. Brands pay my league, my team for sponsorship. Brands pay, media, so that their brand is seen and recognized on these digital platforms. And then when you go down, you look at players. This is, a very big space here. Players are owned by teams. Players have become individual rights owners. As when I look at someone like Messi, or when I look at someone like Ronaldo, when Messi moved to PSG recently, those of us who watch football, we know that Messi was at Barcelona, and there was a big issue around Messi moving from Barcelona to, Paris Saint-Germain in France. And it was such a big deal. And, numbers were shattered. Oh, he moved, so many shots were bought, so much in terms of interaction on social media. I believe Paris Saint-Germain acquired 20 million followers in 4 hours. Isn't that incredible? That's amazing. So in 4 hours, they amassed 20 million new followers. That tells you how amazing sports is. But the conversation you probably want to think about as a sports lawyer is, what was the contract? What was the contract like for his movement when he went to PSG? There's a whole big document that said he can't do this, he can't do that. And all of this, when you look at this diagram, at every given space, in terms of direction, when you talk about broadcast and traditional media, if I'm going to showcase a league, then I have to have a broadcast partnership with the league. What are the terms, right? What are the rights that the league has? What are the rights that the traditional, the media platform has? If I am a fan, I'm going to a stadium, is it safe for me? So there's so much that, we would be able to speak on when it comes to, the league ecosystem and the role of lawyers. So I really just wanted us to see at this juncture what, the sports ecosystem looks like, and the flow of money, the commercial conversation, and how, when we see at an international level, sports is so big. This is really the diamond flow. This is where this is how money and resources are distributed. And this is the challenge that we have in Africa, because we have not been able to perfect this, revenue conversation. So I'll go quickly through revenue streams, and I'll share this with with Angela so that she can share with you. When you see I have some links. So like what's written down here, business strategy, Manchester United, you can be able to click on this link and it will show you really what some of these global sports brands look like. And you know, you can be able to have a sense of, if I'm a lawyer, what areas can I be able to touch on that, you know, within this sports space. When we talk about revenue streams for sports, we're talking about merchandise, media rights, ticket sales, sponsorship, product licensing, mobile content, event management, and so forth, research. It's the streams are endless. And finally, I'll come to, you know, after all of that, and we've understood, you know, the commercial conversation behind sports, I come to, you know, just the introduction of sports law. I am not a sports lawyer myself. I do understand the value of sports law. I've been very lucky to work with amazing brands like Crystal Palace. I can say it in this room today because I'm working with lawyers and I know we keep information within ourselves, that Olympic Lyon will be coming to Kenya next week. We have their head of academy, and you know, there's documents that I've had to sign say that, you know, I'll not do A, B, C, D between now and the next 3 years and stuff like that. So when we talk about sports law, really, I believe the my colleagues rather will be able to present on this. So, you know, duty of care, disciplinary hearings, intellectual property, which is very big, fundraising, contracts, consumer protection, incorporation, and so much more. So, you know, when we talk about sports law and sports, when we talk about sports business, we can't talk about business and not talk about, you know, law. So with that, I'll come to the end of my presentation. This is really just a touch. There's so much that we can talk about within this industry. And my hope is that, you know, I can continue to interact with all of you, you know, not just now and, you know, into the future, and look at the opportunities that present themselves within the area of sports and sports business and sports law. So Angela, I'll throw it back at you. If there are any questions, I'm happy to, you know, take them on.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. I think you have just blown open the lid, because when people think about sports, our minds are just normally focused on the field only, but you have brought it to light that there are 1,000,001 contracts that can be drafted, and that there are numerous revenue streams. But most of all, you have told us about the value of sports. So picking up on where you left off on the issue of sports law. Now, our next speaker, who is coming from Tanzania, will shed a bit of light on what advice we can give our clients who happen to be sportsmen and women on investment of sports revenue and management, such that we can achieve sustainability of the client beyond active sports. So for this, our speaker is Noel Shio from Tanzania. He is a registered and practicing advocate of the High Court of Tanzania. He is an arbitrator and a certified director under the Institute of Directors in Tanzania. He is a qualified investment advisor, having successfully passed courses offered by the Capital Markets and Securities Authority, and also the Chartered Institute of Securities and Investments, both in Tanzania and in the United Kingdom. He is a multidisciplinary and diverse professional who combines knowledge and experience in law, social sciences, investment, public policy, and business management, with a strong exposure from a myriad of cultures, being from a myriad of cultures into general corporate commercial law practice with a special interest in energy and natural resources, capital human management, business strategy, and investment advisory. Noel is also, and get this, one of only a handful of certified sports and entertainment lawyers within Tanzania, and he's also a technology enthusiast. Noel has over 9 years experience in areas spanning across technology, construction, sports, and entertainment sectors in Tanzania, having regularly advised a number of mining companies and also top tier engineering consultancies together with many sportsmen and women. So Noel, over to you. Noel? Yes, Noel? Well, let us put that introduction on hold as we shift gears again. Now, Cynthia has talked about the business of sports. We all know with business comes law and politics. So as we wait for Noel to log in, we can hear from Moses. Moses will talk to us about the business of sports and how to position ourselves strategically so that we can get into the management of sports and into various bodies managing and regulating sports. Moses is from Uganda, and Moses has a bachelor's degree in international sports law from ISDE Business Law School in Madrid, Spain. He has a Master of Science degree in finance and financial law. He has a postgraduate bar course diploma in legal practice from the Legal Development Center at Kampala. And he also holds a Bachelor of Laws degree from Makerere University in Kampala. Currently, Moses is the Director of Privatization Unit at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development in Uganda. Prior to that, he was the Head of Legal Services in the same directorate. Before that, he was the Acting Corporation Secretary and Legal Counsel with the Civil Aviation Authority. And he has also practiced as a Senior Associate with Nangwala, Resida and Company Advocates in Kampala. Now, Moses is also a very experienced sports administrator, and he has served on the Uganda Olympics Committee in the Executive Board and has been the chairman of the Legal and Ethics Commission, where he advised on corporate legal compliance and other regulatory matters. And he's the current president of the Uganda Swimming Federation, and he has held this position since March 2020. You can see he is extremely qualified to talk to us about the politics of sports. Over to you, Moses.
Thank you, Angela, for your very kind introduction. I'm always very shy, and I think I should confess that I leave out many things when it comes to writing my sports CV, because I'm not accustomed to having the spotlight on me. As a sports administrator, my preference has been to have the spotlight shine on athletes. But thank you, and I totally appreciate. Perhaps I should say I am also privileged to serve as a member of the FINA Legal Committee and have been recently appointed to the FINA Reform Committee that will help to reform. FINA is the International Swimming Federation, for the benefit of those who might not know what FINA is. So I've been privileged to serve, and including other positions really that in my humble opinion, have only enabled me to enrich my administrative experience. But back to this topic, Angela, first of all, I have been asking how you came to choose on me. There's many people that can deliver, that can do justice to this subject. So I am privileged, and I should say that I am very passionate to matters sport, but particularly to issues that have to do with women empowerment. So I'm very happy to be on this panel. I just have a few ideas to share, because what I'm sure that what I'm going to say is not new. I really would like to talk from my experience. I don't think that I'll be sharing things that people haven't heard of before. And like you said, I am in the trenches every day. Before I came here.
We are losing you. We are losing you. Maybe check your connection.
Can you hear me
Moses, I don't
now?
know whether you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Moses yes, now we can hear you. But before you get into your presentation proper, let me just answer your question. You wondered how come we settled on you. You know, you asked a question and you answered it yourself. You might not be used to the spotlight being shown on you, but the impact of what you do is felt by your peers, and it is felt by the society at large. That is why you came very highly recommended to give this talk. So welcome.
Thank you, Angela. I appreciate. And I should apologize if my connectivity is not as strong. I hope I'm clear and everybody can hear me right now.
Yes, now you're very clear.
Thank you. So my focus should be on how women can, position themselves in sports leadership, and how basically the politics of sports. There are many books that have been written about this, and I would like to share my presentation, maybe with you, Angela, so you can distribute it to the participants here. But I think the one thing I would like to say, first of all, is the one important factor or issue that I would like to stress is the importance of women participating in sports in general. Before we go into politics, why should women participate in sports? I think it's important. Women's participation in sports is important for any thriving society. A society where women are downtrodden, where they're second-hand citizens, where they're not given equal opportunities, is not progressive. And I think it's from that recognition that we need to have this very honest discussion in terms of how women can continue to position themselves, and they offer themselves in different positions of leadership. Participation of girls in sports, I can give you a quick example, is a matter for pride. It enhances their physical well-being, their confidence, their greater confidence, and the discipline that comes with participation in sports often enables an individual to perform very well in the other spheres of life. For instance, their work, if they're not full-time sports men or women, in this case, women. So the discipline that comes with being an athlete often enables one to live a more balanced life, to do things that would enable them to thrive and survive better. So I don't think that it's arguable why we must support women to participate and have take a shot at leadership opportunities. I have been listening to, or rather watching TV and seeing how the situation in Afghanistan is folding, and I'm sure all of you have been watching in shock. I happen to have gone to the recently concluded Olympics in Japan, and I was always amazed when I got in touch with female leaders from specific countries, and I would like to name Afghanistan. I got into contact with a lady who is a member of the International Olympic Committee, but from Afghanistan. And I was very happy to share experiences and understand how things are going. And it was progressive. It was progressive so much so that you've got a cricket team in Afghanistan. You've got women playing basketball. You've got women swimming. Arab women specifically have struggled with swimming and some other sports where you've got to wear, costumes, which otherwise would, would make them feel not too decently dressed, for lack of a better word. But a society, for instance, like Afghanistan, has been thriving on sport. And I was shocked, obviously, with the recent developments in Afghanistan, when now different female sports women had no choice but to start fleeing the country. And of course, the new leadership declared that women have no business in sports. They should stay home. That was very heartbreaking for me. So this discussion really for me is relevant, and have seen people that live in societies that haven't given women the opportunities. Cynthia said some really nice things, and I don't want to go over what she said, but I think for me, one of the things that sticks out is the fact that women are key to the solutions that we need to find for the different problems. Whenever and this is not to flatter ladies here, I hope that I don't get in trouble. I have served on many boards, and I have the opportunity to serve on a number of corporate boards. And often when you want solutions, when you want things delivered, you most likely not be disappointed by the ladies. They are fair in their judgment. They are balanced in their decision. They are rational in how they think. Like they say, women are better leaders than ourselves. With my experience, I can attest to this. So we need women to storm the gates. We need women to do everything to ensure that they're in positions of leadership, that they take up political appointments in different places. So the politics obviously is a ballgame. It is dominated by men, and we need to do a number of things to ensure that women participate. And the opportunities are many. The opportunities are available at local level. It could be your local club, your local swimming club, your local football club, your local athletics club. The opportunities are available at a national level, your federation level, but even national federations and international federations also offer many opportunities for women to do this. But I think while we're talking about equal opportunities, we also need to remember that it goes hand in hand with this whole discussion about gender equality and gender parity. Some people prefer parity to equality. There's people who believe that we can never have gender equality, so they rather push for parity rather than equality. I think it's very debatable. But for now, I think we can talk in terms of gender equality. The importance of equal opportunities for all genders in sport particularly enables women to have an equal fighting chance. And I think personally, I see 3 levels. The first one, rather 4. The first one is coaching, and I think Cynthia talked about that. The second and obvious one is athletes. The other one is at leadership level, and then of course the sports, professionals. So I'd like to pay a little bit of attention on the leadership level and the politics that goes with it. I think, as I've already mentioned, the political field is, first of all, it's a minefield. It's dominated by men. And I think we all know, somebody mentioned that coaching for girls sometimes is tough. You have to be tough like nails to get in. But I think while we appreciate that the opportunities are, the one thing that I think that we need to encourage women to do, and for the ladies here to know that we have to do, is first of all to equip yourself. Like they say, when opportunity strikes, you need to be ready. So point number 1, equip yourself. understand the terrain. If you're going for a leadership position, say at federation level, please understand the terrain, understand the game. Like some people say, it shouldn't be the players you hate, but the game. So understand the terrain. Many times, I think women have struggled to understand the terrain. And I think this is where guys have been a little bit more versatile, more aggressive. It obviously takes time. You have to let yourself into it. You have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And so it takes understanding the terrain. I would like to emphasize that. Having understood the terrain, please equip yourself. And equipping here, I want to be very specific. Let's acquire the relevant skills. We can study, we can pick experiences by attaching ourselves to different organizations. Studying particularly enables us to understand sports at a deeper level. Sports at some point used to be treated as being a part of the entertainment world. Obviously, I can't disagree that sports is entertaining, but sports has taken a professional angle. So I think it's important for women to equip themselves with the appropriate knowledge. And I think Cynthia talked about sports law. Sports law, which I concluded a course, an international master's course in sports law about 5 years ago, was an eye-opener for me. It's one thing to be on the ground, but it's also another to get the knowledge that equips you to work better. The sports law that I think Cynthia mentioned about, and I hope I do not ruin it for Noel, is really life-changing. And it's good to know that we're talking to sports lawyers. I know that we have struggled to have something that we would call a sports law practice or practicing community in East Africa. There's a number of firms that have handled this and the other, but it's very difficult to say that somebody has got a sports law practice. Sports law alone, the kind of things that you study open you up to organizations, the Organization of International Sports Federation, intellectual property and image rights, sports finance, anti-doping and aspects of even sports medicine. Another thing that we've learned very, very intently in sports law is sports dispute resolution and mediation, which introduces one to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, the Supreme Court of Sport, as we call it. And this here is a money-making opportunity for not just men, but women. Of course, sports jurisdiction is another topic that is taught very ably in sports law. So studying and equipping oneself enables you to be ready when opportunity strikes. And the other thing, of course, is to position oneself. I think that women need to position themselves. Having equipped yourself, having understood the terrain, you now need to position yourself so that you can aspire to that sports office that one needs to take up. I have been looking at statistics, for instance, of the International Olympic Committee, FIFA, FUFA, FINA, all the other international federations. And it's true that whereas women previously were not, ably represented, the numbers are coming up, but it's not yet at par. As I mentioned earlier, we would like to advocate for gender parity, at best, gender equality. One thing that comes to my mind is the fact that the United Nations in 2009 granted the International Olympic Committee a permanent observer status at the UN General Assembly. So this means that the UN has recognized the role that sport plays in promoting peace and development. And the International Olympic Committee, being the highest decision-making organ in our sports field, has equally recognized that we must, the IOC has recognized the importance of the Sustainable Development Goals. Goal number 5 is on gender equality. So in everything we do, the IOC insists that we must strive for gender equality. So one other thing that we need to do, obviously, is for us to ensure that the governments we work for or that work for us put in place policies that promote gender equality and parity in lieu of this UN fifth goal on sustainable development. The laws can be written in such a way that they encourage girls to participate. I think you all recall the 1989 female emancipation movement that enabled women to break out. That movement went very well. And of course, the jury is still out arguing that I think the boy child has been forgotten. I'm not too sure what people think here, but that movement was very helpful to help girls take up opportunities in education and many other things. But I think we seem to have stalled somewhere. We need to revisit the things that can enable women to have, those opportunities to aspire to positions of politics. But gender equality is a UN development goal. It has been embraced at the highest level. And the IOC often encourages that every international federation recognizes the role of women and as much as possible ensuring that they should be sitting on boards of these different organizations. The other thing in wrapping up, I think, is for us as lawyers to understand that we first of all, the documentation, the statutes that govern these different organizations can also be written in such a way that they emphasize the importance of women participating. There's obviously places where it's going to be very difficult for women to quite easily get into particular races if they don't get a bit of a push. And so that's one thing that we can also do to continue ensuring that women are given the opportunity. So in conclusion, I think my view on this is that women should first of all storm the gates. Women should, in storming the gates, go with the necessary ammunition. I think we have got people and we've got policies that must be in place to support this. But in also doing this, we should remember that the International Olympic Committee, the UN, and many governments should be able to support women standing up to positions of politics. There should be many questions. Angela, allow me to stop here for now. I think at the question and answer time, I can clarify a little bit more because I can see that my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moses, for your insightful presentation. Just to recap, Moses has advised us to equip ourselves. That is, we learn the terrain and then we get the appropriate knowledge. Then with that, we'd be able to position ourselves because once opportunity knocks, it needs to find you prepared. Then we also need to create awareness on the legal aspects. We have a look at the laws that are creating some of these bodies because there could be opportunity there. Now, we have talked about the politics of sports, the business of sports, and with that comes the requirement that we need to give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And when we are advising clients or when we are looking for opportunities, we have to be very conscious about what requirements are there. So we have our speaker from South Sudan, Mr. Philip Anyang Nyong. He will talk to us about sports and taxation. That is critical areas to watch out for in matters taxation of sports revenue, especially when advising or managing clients, or if we want to venture into sports as a business. So Philip Anyang Nyong is a partner at Anyang and Anyar and Partners that is based in Juba, South Sudan. He advises a variety of clients in matters taxation and revenue and in oil and gas, corporate and commercial law, amongst others. He is also a renowned litigator, arbitrator, and dispute resolver. He holds a Master of Laws from Strathmore University in Kenya and an MBA from the same university. And he also holds a bachelor's degree in law from, just a minute, bachelor's degree in law from Kampala, from the Kampala International University. Phillips, over to you.
Thank you so much, Angela, for that. It's a great day and hope we all find. Thanks to the early presenters. I've had a lot today. I never expected to be such compact and such intensive, especially after listening to Cynthia, who seems to own it all, who seems to be a big actor and a big player. It's good to also know that she's the brain behind Sport Connect Africa. I'm a football fan, an Arsenal fan, disappointed one, but still playing it strong. And I hope that at some point we'll get it right. I still know we get it right, just as Gor Mahia has been doing it and other players. It's a huge thing. It's a big discussion. Talk about the law, the aspect of sports law. Talk about the commercial itself, which is a business aspect of law. And of course, most of us touched a bit on all those aspects. I believe the biggest part of this is the commercial part. Everybody does a thing or plays a game for the passion of it and for the interest in it and for the money in it, the interest in the money that someone gains from there. On that aspect, I'll first, it's a big topic, and I thought this is something that has been left out in all the regions, in the East Africa region here in Africa and internationally. Women in sport, or the role of women, opportunities of women in sport have been neglected, and nothing has been done by all the actors, all the institutions, all the countries, all the clubs, and all the persons involved. It's good that someone like Moses, who has a very big background in sports, hinted on that. I also believe the biggest part of this is to make sport a component of our practice, make sports a component of our trainings, because there's too much, it comes out of the practice. And this area that people see is not directly being addressed. Women have complained, and women are being seen as vulnerable groups, which I still believe, no, they're not vulnerable. It's towing the right line that has not come into place. Of all these things being discussed, the commercial aspect, the law aspect of the law of the sport, they are compounded on the bigger part of this institutionalizing sports as business. I know in most countries, and I'll talk about South Sudan in particular, we have had no law in place that regulates sports, apart from basic regulations that clubs are doing, basic regulation that the Ministry of Sports and the sport clubs are doing. But entirely, there is no clear policy framework or law in place to regulate sports as an activity, to regulate sport as business, and this is where the confusion comes in. I know most countries in the region have not done enough on the same, in ensuring that the space for sport in the region is captured and given all the due consideration. I know that the business will talk of tax as its part. We'll talk of consumer protection as an aspect. We'll talk of issues of trademark as a part of it, and basically the profits part. Sport, the fact that we've not institutionalized it leaves question that what do we need to make it to get to where we're getting to? In part, any club, you've had figures being shown before. I saw 3.9 billion in sports as since shared. You've had clubs like Man City splashing money to buy players. You've had clubs like Man U, Arsenal, Chelsea's putting in money to buy players. It doesn't just go like that, because it's some money being pulled out from a company's account, being pulled out to buy a player. There are so many people pitching and waiting to take a cut from it. The regulator, the player, the country that come from, and of course the government's involved, the taxes involved. There's a big aspect of this. In normal jurisdiction, in normal countries, it's commercial. If you say that I'm running Gor Mahia Football Club, someone owns it, or a group of people own that club. There's what comes in, what goes out, what comes in terms of sponsorship, what comes in terms of endorsements, what comes in terms of advertisements, what comes in terms of you're selling kits, you're selling items, selling jerseys, selling stuff like that. The state has had a very big interest on that. That's why you see sport today. There's a lot of money in circulation, especially with the sports like basketball and football. I know there's another game, American football, that is being it's a big part of this. But the big aspect of it is these two main games have had huge cash in circulation. But where do the government align themselves to reap or to get something in form of tax? It's a business, yes. And a business regulated by, of course, it's a company, it runs its own affairs, it's a club, it's a society, it runs its own affairs. Every other state has its own mode of getting in, issuing regulatory compliances, that we're taking this stake from a player that has been bought, we're taking this stake from a cost of items sold, we're taking this stake from the sponsorship from this big company, we're taking this stake from the investment that these people have put in the company. It's a circulation, it's a circle involving all those actors. But the biggest question that we was going, that we as persons involved, where do government and the actors, the owners, the companies cut a deal? Yes, if we have no laws in place, if you have no infrastructure in place, you have no institutions in place, if you have no policies in place to draw in between to support sport and make money from the sport and build a sport, and of course let it be profitable. This is a wrangle. This is the confusion that this is the confusion that the parties, the actors are having, because the biggest part of all is if the government is coming in with taxes, what is government taxing in particular? And if you're taxing sports, are you taxing it to discourage it, or taxing it to push it out of the market, or tax it to get some money and still encourage it to operate? So I hope sorry, somebody in the background.
No. Proceed, Philip.
Oh yeah. So I'm just saying that sports and taxes are things that cannot be separated because of the aspects I mentioned earlier. It's commerce, but it's commerce that should be promoted and sustained. But how do you sustain it now? It's two aspects. You sustain it to keep it in play. Also sustain it to build and make money from it. If those two things are not put together into a workable formula, and then one person goes off, it's either the taxpayer, which is a sport club, goes off, so the taxpayer that the player himself goes off, so the taxpayer that someone playing a role, as mentioned earlier. It's been divided earlier, that there's a sport and then there's a player. There's a sport that buys a player, and then there's a player that pays taxes, plays for the club, and pays taxes. In a country whereby, say, yes, we have an incident of South Sudanese playing in Kenya. He has not been paid for the last 18 months. I'll not mention the club. And he was saying that he's being taxed still, yet he has not been paid. What are you taxing here? It's what you get that you're being taxed. It's what you get that is being taxed. It's what the club gets that is being taxed. So if these two points are not aligned to each other, and then there's a diversion. The diversion here kills the intent itself, which is building the sport and of course make money from the sport. Touching slightly on women in sport and opportunities in sport. I had a question that where's the division? Where do we divert here? Where do we separate? What is a cutting line? Where do we move out from here? I know very well that we consider issues of gender equality or gender parity, as mentioned earlier, consider women empowerment, and of course we take it as it's a platform that brings everybody on board. You've had athletes in Kenya, ladies making money or taking titles or owning the game. We've had the same guys, men, also doing the same thing. But the biggest part is where don't we meet here? Like, what is the point whereby both genders don't meet here? There has been an issue of passion because it's a sport, but a sport, there must be a passion for it. I don't know what game do Angela play? Do you also run, or you play basketball, or you swim, or there's something that you do and you do it for you do it well. You've seen Usain Bolt was fastest runner, I say that because he does his passion. So if we are to say that let's empower women, or let's see opportunities for women in sport, it's a wide thing, but also it starts from the passion itself, the love for the game, the like for the game. Can I do it? Can I get involved and be part of this? This is a question I will ask first. That if we are saying let's push and have women on the same platform like men, then where don't we get it right? Or why is it hard for men for we to get it right that we also have the two genders on the same platform? I believe the biggest question goes back to all of us that this is an open discussion. It's an open opportunity that must be streamlined. That it's not a favor to say that we are having a female coach to be a coach for Harambee Stars, or be a coach for Uganda Cranes, or to be a coach for Atlabara FC in Juba here, or be a coach for those Marines or those teams. Because people have already been given, you've not given someone an opportunity to take up a role, and then you've denied that person the basics of that person being an actor. So I believe it's us getting it right, that what a man can do, a woman can do. And then it's also us getting right that a sport, there's a sport for us and there's a sport for all. So if there's a sport for men, it's the same thing can happen in sport for women. But the biggest issue is that can we agree that women also can be like men in the games that we play, in the activities that we play? If we get that thing right, then we move to the aspect of what can be done to give this person what they do. If, like I mentioned, if we have a female president in Tanzania, why is it very difficult to have a female football president, or president of the Football Association in Kenya? If we have a president of Basketball Federation in South Sudan, who is a male, what is difficult to have the same as a female? Because these are two games. There's sport part, there's a female part, there's a male part. But the biggest question again is, can we do it and make it real and make it right? It goes back to the regulation that we have in place, the laws that we have in place, the practices that are there, and of course the policies that sport actors, sports institutions put in place. If we think of giving women opportunities from the practice here, we have Advocates Football Club in South Sudan. It's purely for men now, it's for men, but I believe there are some women or female advocates that can build up a club in the same sense, and we run the same platform together. But the opportunities are being limited because of the stereotype and the biasness of our minds that sports is for men, that sport it's for that gender. Let's get it right again. That if we have these activities in place, it's good to lay a foundation that we are all equal from the word go. It's good to lay a foundation that this thing can be done by somebody else. If you sit back now, people are saying there are no sports lawyers, and you've had Moses, you've had Cynthia. It's something easy. It's as easy as that. It's a course being offered now, and if it's a course being offered, why can it be taken down to our classrooms, to the practice, so that we have it that there's a sport law in practice at the law schools, at the universities. Because if you have sport law at the university, it builds up a network of someone having a focus on that particular sector of practice. So entirely, I will say that it's a business. There is no way you're making profits, so BPT gets to be taxed. You're employing people. There is a CEO, you have the human resource, you have the clerks, you have the accountants, you're managing finances. These are persons that are compliant to pay personal income tax. Of course, some sports don't have their own facilities. They don't have their own properties, they don't have their own things. Some are renting, some are leasing, some are. So there's a bit of, it's taxable from the word go. taxable from whatever way you're staying, taxable from the people you're recruiting, you've recruited to working for the club, and taxable from whatever the company is making. So these are things that cannot be left out, and cannot be said that no, there's no money that can be made from the sport. There's money that's being made by the owners, and there's money that is made by the government or the regulators. So I believe, and I still insist that this is thing that is workable, it's manageable, and it's viable in the sense that if a focus is put onto the sport as an industry or sport as a law, and then there's more to learn from it. I've just seen figures from Cynthia, and I may want to have a chat with her to see if my love for football is something that I can advance to where Cynthia has taken it to now, because of the love for football, the love for sports. So entirely, I'll conclude to say that it's a good discussion. It's not a narrative that can be built. It's something that can be cultivated to see it workable, to see it through, and let's find it. Let's refine it. It's not women in sports or opportunities women in sport. It's opportunities in sport entirely for practitioners. It's opportunities in sport for the society as a whole, because if you say now let's have the Kenyan School of Law play against the Uganda Law Society, it's a business, and this promotes the opportunities involved and the strength involved, and how we can correlate and work together across borders. Otherwise, thanks so much. I will see if there are questions coming in. It's a wide topic, as Ali mentioned, and we will have more to discuss maybe at the preliminaries and questions to be. Yes, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Phillips. Indeed, you have given us a lot of food for thought. You had very thought-provoking sentiments there. But the take home is we really need to look at the regulatory and legal framework surrounding sports, because taxation hinges on the legal framework. So if it is all arbitrary and just based on regulations by clubs, then there's a bit of ambiguity. So I had introduced a speaker prior, but he had dropped off the call for one or two reasons, but now our speaker is back, Mr. Noel Shio. Allow me, members, to repeat the introduction, because if the person being introduced did not hear what we said about him, then he needs to clarify whether we lied or not. So our speaker from Tanzania is here. He's going to talk to us about how we can advise our clients on investment of sports revenue and the opportunities that lie therein, such that we can ensure sustainability of the sportsmen and women beyond active sports. Noel is a registered and practicing advocate of the High Court in Tanzania. He is an arbitrator and a certified director under the Institute of Directors in Tanzania. He's also a qualified investment advisor, having successfully passed courses that are offered by the Capital Markets and Securities Authority and Chartered Institute of Securities and Investments, both in Tanzania and in UK. He is a multidisciplinary and diverse professional who combines knowledge and experiences in law, social sciences, investment, public policy, and business management, with a strong exposure from a myriad of cultures into general corporate, commercial law practice, with a special interest in energy and natural resources, both legal, regulatory, and fiscal framework, legal content issues, amongst others. And Noel is only one of a handful of certified sports and entertainment lawyers in Tanzania. He's also a technology enthusiast, He has over 9 years experience in areas spanning across technology, training, consultancies, and advisory service, which is offered in mining, oil and gas, banking, financial, engineering, construction, more especially sports and entertainment sectors in Tanzania. Noel, over to you. We are eager to hear your presentation on investments and sports revenue. Noel?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Angela. First of all, my sincere apologies, guys. I'm in the middle of, business as lawyers. Then we have a big contract signing in today with some of the clients, again, in the sports entertainment. So I could not miss the event. And yeah, so basically the schedule got intertwined between yesterday and today. And here I am today. Hopefully it's a huge topic. First of all, thank you for having me on board. Thank you to Judith, who actually introduced me to the platform. So the topic that I was supposed to have taken you through today was basically on management of revenues that are earned from sports. So this is a huge topic because revenues could be from different, or rather be acquired, accumulated by different entities. It could be the sports as franchises, as the organizations. It could be somebody as an agent who owns or rather manages a football player, for example, or an athlete, or it could be an athlete himself or herself. So to cut, due to time constraints, I said, let me put my discussions today in very few words and concentrate largely on a person that I feel or have experienced to be on the lower bargaining chip in terms of most of athletes in Africa or in Tanzania particularly are not yet very much educated in terms of the financial literacy that they have in terms of investing what little revenue that they earn or much revenue that they earn, but in a very short period of time. As we may all be aware, and it has been said before by previous presenters, is that a sports career is relatively very short. If you're lucky, one may play or one may be engaged in a certain act for maximum 15 years, of which only maybe 6 to 8 years will be at the peak. And this is where the people, that athlete may be earning more. So it is very critical beforehand that an athlete understands this and they see the need to diversify their portfolios for them to be able to sustain the living beyond an active sports career. I've devised a few tips that I've always shared with the few clients that I've had, rather privileged to manage in terms of taking care of their finances or anything of that sort. Rule of thumb to me will be, first of all, is to earn it. So you have to really be good in terms of getting the right advice from the beginning when you're negotiating a contract. The role of advisor should never be neglected. So this is where you earn your money. After you earn it, you save it. You have to make sure that you always have an eye and a hunger to save the little that you're making, but also to grow it, because saving in itself does not really keep you sustained long-term beyond active sports career. Then the trick is to grow. So now how do you grow? So these a few tips that I'm going to share with you with the time that I've had will basically take us through both the processes, the three things: the earning part, the saving part, and the growing part. First and foremost is, I always tell my clients, is to understand their income and expenditure. One of the first things athletes should do is to fully understand the income that is coming in, the income that is going out. In Africa, we have a lot of liabilities, we have a lot of relatives that if you make it to the top, everyone will be calling you to ask for something. You can do this easily or manage your relations with your family by actually including some of the family members in knowing, or rather work hand in hand with whoever is managing you or managing your finances to know exactly what needs to be sent to them, maybe on a monthly basis, basically have an expenditure or a budget, something of that sort, and make sure that you do not forget where you came from, because that's the biggest curse in Africa. In Tanzania, I will say, because the moment you start neglecting those who believe have had a very positive role to play in making you become who you are, that's the moment you start this quarreling with them. So knowing your income and expenditure and spending wisely. That's like any other person, a sports person needs to understand this in order for them to be able to be sustainable and relevant beyond active sports career. And how do you know that your income and your expenditure? You also need to check on your lifestyle. Basically, it's just having good habits. This is basically normal advice you will give to a relative or to your kids or to your friends about where to spend your money on and where not to spend your money on, where to save, where to invest, and all these other things. So good habits are usually hard to come by, and very few of us are blessed with that habit. Most of us are not in good habits when it comes to money. The moment it comes in, you always think it will come in some way or the other. So we tend to overspend or spend our monies in areas where we do not need to spend it. So the sooner athletes start saving better, that's a trajectory that they will have a better future beyond active sports period. So how much they earn, how often do you spend your money, where do you spend your money on, what do you do when you're injured in cases there are no insurances, covers, how well are you able to basically manage your finances, which comes to the third tip, which is on insurance and social security. For football players, if I may be a bit specific, or any other sports for that matter, because they have a contract of employment per se, some of them do have access to social security, in which things like workers' compensation fund are applicable, or NSSF in Tanzania or anything of that sort, where they basically can go and get some pension benefits at their retirement. But if you're talking about entertainers, where they are mostly paid on shows or appearances or endorsement deals or anything of that sort, most of these guys do not have access to social security, or rather do not know about it. While the social securities have tried to be very creative in terms of creating packages that basically encourages voluntary saving, most of these guys do not understand the need to have such voluntary saving schemes, or do not see the need of having that, because simply they earn a lot where they think they can sustain their life beyond active sports or entertainment career. So getting into good habits is a no-brainer, and making sure that there is insurance or social security to actually keep you sustainable beyond active sports period is also very important. Another important tip is I think I mentioned this around, we should always advise our clients, if they are athletes or entertainers, to have to seek professional advisors, be it tax advice, be it lawyers, be it wealth management or anything of that sort. They're usually professionals who are paid to do this. We're going to school to help people like them achieve their lifetime goals, and neglecting their advice or anything of that sort should not be an option. So always respect and seek professional advice whenever possible. And now let's come to another tip, which is on the investment part. How do you grow now that money that you're earning? So you could diversify your portfolio in terms of investment. A lot of rich people we are seeing in Africa tend to invest more on property rather than the financial markets, which is a pity, because of course of the growth and the vibrancy of the financial markets in Africa is not that good. For example, in Tanzania, our capital markets just started in 1999, if I'm not mistaken. So the awareness, even with the general public, is not as desired in terms of people having an appetite to go and buy shares, or to go and buy bonds, government bonds, be long-term or short-term, or to invest in any of the financial instruments that may be available at a particular point in time. So we need to actually encourage efforts into letting athletes know about possible opportunities in terms of investment into the financial markets or financial products, because they always pay dividend long term. So for example, you are an entertainer. I like to use the entertainment thing, because that is, of course, footballers in Tanzania are not earning as much as some of the biggest stars in terms of the entertainment business, the music, the likes of the Diamonds, the Ali Kibas. These are the right candidates for investment, for example, into long-term government bonds and such other products, because it then gives them sustainability when they can no longer go to a studio and produce a hit song or go on a concert or on a tour in the States or in Europe for them to earn that extra money that they're used to now that they're in their peak performance. But also another important tip is to always enjoy yourself, but have an eye on the future based on the time that one will be at their peak. But to achieve that financial independence that is needed, one has to always have sporting clients to help them achieve financial independence. For different people in different sports, playing at different levels, this means different things. But for me, it means getting athletes into a position where they are comfortable in control of their future at the end of their professional sporting career. So athletes are an invaluable position of being able to make decisions over exactly what they want to do for the rest of their life without having financial pressures weighing down on them. This independence will make their transition into post-sporting life all more easy. Look, I will always tell my clients, like, look at the way Michael Jordan keeps on making money from the Air Jordan shoe. How many years has he been retired now? The guy is almost 50, but he's still having the best selling shoe every year. So these are the things that our athletes, our entertainers, our celebrities need to look into. We've seen some few examples in Tanzania with artists coming up with their own products. In Tanzania, if you follow like music here, we have Jukes, who was a very good doing clothing line label called African Boy. Diamond had tried with perfumes, Diamond Perfumes. They have a record label. He has ventured into media. He is a real estate guru, we are told. Of course, we cannot verify all these things, but this is just an example of what an artist could do to diversify their sources of, their income and invest it into times where they will not be able to make that much money as they're making today. So without wasting too much time, I think those were the tips that I prepared to share with you today. Again, my apologies for not being able to have a presentation to share my screen because of the commitments that I'm currently engaged in. I hope we'll have future sessions like this where we could talk more about how franchises can invest the money that they're making. Of course, we talk about sui generis rights, the copyrights, the IPs, the endorsement deals, the advertisements, the promotions. You can talk about all these things, the media tours, the appearances, the reality shows. Now we're seeing Sauti Sol going to partnership with Netflix, doing a reality show. We're seeing Diamond also venturing into that. So these are sort of things that when you're at your peak, you actually need to invest to make sure that income keeps on coming in even when you're not at your peak. Thank you very much for the opportunity, guys, to share a little that I had on the topic.
Noel, you are very welcome, and apology accepted. We understand that we have to honor our professional obligations. Thank you for your tips. In brief, that our clients need to know their income, to embrace good spending habits, to get insurance, to speak to professional advisors, and to enjoy themselves, but have an eye to the future. I think I have been talking for quite a while. I want to hand over to my co-host, Ms. Judith, to take us through the plenary and closing remarks. Judith, over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairlady. And thank you very much, all the panelists, for the good presentation. Now, allow me to take you over for the Q&A before we go for the closing remarks. On the Q&A questions, I hope I can be heard clearly.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Thank you. We have two questions, and from Ms. Charlotte Nyangeri. The first question is posed to Moses. He said, you talked about women strategically positioning themselves so that they can be involved in sport. The question is, how do you specifically propose they go about it. And allow me to read all the questions and then we leave for the panelists to answer them. Is it okay, Madam Chair Lady?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. The next question is posed to Philip. Again, he said, how do you go about sport taxation? Do you enter into a separate contract from the athlete's employment contract? And is there a considerable difference between national and international taxation? I think those are the two questions posted on the question and answers. I think Mr. Philip may go ahead and answer them while we wait for the other questions posed to the panelists.
No? Yes, hello.
Hello, should I read the question again or did you get the question?
Let me see the question. Okay, how do you go about sports taxation? That's the first part. Okay, sport taxation is, as I mentioned earlier, it's a huge topic and it's a huge. It has so many complex approaches. It's based on 4 principles. One, there's a principle of territory, which is a principle of source. The second part is a principle of residence. The fourth part is a principle of universality or the worldwide income. And then the last part, which is on nationality. Because if you're looking at a South Sudanese being taken over by maybe Gor Mahia or say, as you know, the aspects of that. Me going to Emirates or going to London, I'll go there as first of all, a resident. Of course, I may acquire my residence from there. And then there's a part whereby I'm being paid as a sportsman in South Sudan by a South Sudanese club, just like maybe Dennis Oliech of Kenya with the Harambee Stars those days. That is one. There's another part whereby you have a player like, say, a Kenyan player in Premier League. That is the universality of worldwide income. This is the money that comes from outside the country. And then of course there's the principle of nationality, which is I'm a South Sudanese, I play for South Sudan, I'm supposed to pay taxes back home in South Sudan. It varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction because the laws of taxation laws in different countries differs. And in other aspects, I may be paying income tax to my country from a foreign jurisdiction. So that's one way of the government reaping or government getting money from me as a person. So these 4 aspects are employed in different situations. Me playing domestically and me playing internationally. So this is the breaking point. The third part is that an employment contract or a sports contract doesn't distinguish what you give to your country. And a sports contract clearly defines your terms of engagement with the team that has taken you on board. What you are paying in terms of, if you have bonuses coming in, what's taxable on that? If you have income coming in, what's payable on that? You have the cost of purchase, what is taken by the host country or host regulator. That is on that. So basically, what goes back to your home country is defined by the obligations that you are entitled to as you should be compliant to your home country. So this is the distinction. Otherwise, those are the categories of how sports is taxed and how application of sports tax is done. So if you chooses to tax Dennis Onyango for playing for Man U, and then you tax him for the worldwide income that he's making money outside the country, and he has an obligation as a taxpayer back home. So some part of that cash goes back to the treasury. And of course, him as a player within who plays in London, there is some part of that money that he gets that goes to the treasury in the host country. So this is the break. This is the diversion. And that's how it happens. maybe if you need further explanation on that, then we can have a separate chat, or you can let me know if you haven't. But otherwise, what are the four bases of how sports tax is captured and how it's taken? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Philip, for your response. And for the last question, which is posed to Mr. Moses, I think, should I reread the question? Hello? Moses, the question is, you talked about women strategically positioning themselves so that they can be involved in sport. Now, how do you specifically propose they go about it?
Maybe as we wait for Moses to come back online, we can and answer the question.
Okay.
There are a few messages on the chat section. We have from Arvind Upadhyay. Forgive my pronunciation of your name. He's appreciating the presentations. We also have a comment from Stella Minja, who says that the presentations were great. And we have appreciation from Stella Minja to Mr. Noel. She's appreciating the nice, the good presentation. We are seeing your comments. Keep sending your comments and questions. Now, there is another question that weirdly enough, somebody has sent to me, and it is directed to Cynthia, that you expound a bit, saying you went a bit too fast on your last slide. If you could just maybe expound a bit on the last slide, the one that has had the whole ecosystem about the various stakeholders of, no, the last one was on the revenue streams, the previous one on that had all the stakeholders and the flow of money. Just a quick recap.
And I'm sorry, and while Ms. Cynthia is getting ready, there's also another question on from the chat side, that how can a sport enthusiast profit from the engagement in sport?
So I'm ready to share my screen.
Yes, Cynthia.
I believe this is, sorry, let me just move it forward. This is it, where the revenue trickles and flows. Angela, you're on mute.
Yes, that one, just a brief recap.
All right, so maybe I can give an example, and then that way it'll be easier for us to relate. So I'll start with looking at, say, the most popular league in the world, which is the English Premier League. So when you watch the English Premier League, there's the FA, and I learned that it is the only federation in the world that does not have the word association. I mean, the country connected to it. So like Kenya is Football Kenya Federation, or Uganda Football Association. In England, it is just the FA, Football Association. And so you have them at the top. And what happens is there are teams that make up this FA. So the FA, the way it is constituted in the UK is that, or in England for that matter, is the Football Association is it's a private entity. So it's a private entity. It is not owned by government, and it reports to FIFA like every other one. So it is a private entity. It is registered as a limited liability company. It is owned by the teams. So you have Arsenal, Manchester United, and all those other teams combined. So they own a share in this organization, and they have professionals running the organization. So what you're seeing in the middle there, like here, what I've said, Professional Basketball League, is the Professional Football League. They own the entity that we know as the English Premier League. So there's the FA, and the FA owns the Football Premier League. Now, who constitutes the Premier League again? You have the teams. So you have, within the teams, who do you have? You have players, you have team owners, and some of the team owners, I think, who are very well spoken about is someone like Abramovich, the owner of Chelsea, the Glaziers, the owner of Manchester United. And you have team business managers. So they are hired by the owners to manage and to own and to manage the team. Then you have coaches and team managers. You have player managers and agents. So a player will move from team A to team B, and he doesn't do that on his own. He will have an agent or an agency that will manage that transaction. Then you have merchandise partners. In this case, you have Nike, you have Adidas, you have all those. Then you have infrastructure, and this happens. There are two different ways of owning infrastructure. So in the professional level, you will have Emirates Stadium owned by the team itself, Emirates. In Kenya, you have Kasarani Indoor Stadium, which is owned by government. Then you go to the team that supports, and I'll go back to this value chain conversation. So you have your inbound logistics, operations, outbound marketing and sales. You have teams and you have individuals that run these primary activities. So these are the guys who are employed within this professional team. Now you'll also find similarly in the league, you will find that there are different individuals who work within this professional setup. So how does money flow in this setup? Now, the one, before I go into how money flows, I need to talk about how important media is in sports. So we have what we call bums in seats. Whenever you're having your local game, the Yanga is playing Simba. But how did Yanga and Simba grow into the great, crazy, behemoth that they are now? How did they become such amazing teams within what seems like a very short time? I think the whole of East Africa, if you watch football, not everyone does, but if you watch football, everybody's asking questions around, how is Yanga so big? Yanga is filling stadiums with 60, 70,000 people. How is Simba filling stadiums? Well, it's because one, they're professionally run, but two, the power of media. So when Azam TV took over the broadcast of the Tanzanian league, what happened was there was an investment behind both teams. I know that Yanga is predominantly managed by government entities, although it has changed. I think it's a management structure just recently, if I'm not wrong. I need to clarify that. But media plays an exceptionally big role. All the stars that we know from Kenya, from Tanzania, from Uganda, we know them because, well, they were on a TV screen somewhere. The other day we had the Olympics. we wouldn't have known how amazingly Uganda has done over the last few months if we didn't watch these players do so great. If you know you didn't have 1 billion people sitting down watching the English Premier League, I mean, a stadium only takes maximum, the highest, I think the biggest stadium takes maximum 80,000 people. But if you're having Manchester United playing Liverpool, that's a big game. At any given time, you have about 300 million people around the world watching that. That's a value conversation. So you want to be able to understand that if I have TV, what value am I proposing to brands, right? I have 300 million eyes watching my game. So I can be able to calculate that, you know, if I have 300 million, you need to give me $1 billion over the next 2 seasons, over the next 3 seasons, $1 billion, because so many people will be able to interact with your brand. And so when I talk about the flow of money, when you look at this diamond, you talk about the flow of money, it's really just an understanding of where does money come from, where does it go to, right? Within this framework. I'm happy to have a session to really, you know, dive into this, maybe, you know, when at some point, because this diagram here really helps us understand our role as lawyers. You know, it helps us know that from intellectual property, which are intellectual properties here. You have the professional league is an intellectual property, the team is an intellectual property, the player is an intellectual property, the brand has its own intellectual property. We need to be able to understand this diagram and where we sit as lawyers. So if that's not clear, I'm happy to, you know, have a sidebar, side chat with anybody who'd like to understand a little bit better. But really, the essence of this particular diagram is to show us the flow of resources within the sporting environment. And this is really the standard. It might change depending on the sport, but generally, this is what it looks like. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Judith.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cynthia, for the nice presentation. I think we have another question. I think
Judith.
Mr. Moses is here.
Yes, I'm back, Judith.
Yes.
And,
Okay. Can you? Yes. Just continue.
Unfortunately, my internet developed some mood swings. So when you called on me, I could hear, but I think some things were hanging. I couldn't bring them to bear. That's why you should see 2 of me. I'm trying to manage this risk. But I think to give a practical response to the question that Charlotte raised, I think from a practical angle, I would say this. First of all, sports leadership is for the long haul. You, as ladies, you must be prepared to, first of all, understand that it's offered a marathon and not a sprint. By the time people get to the helm, and I'm sure that should be the intention of Charlotte and many others here, you need to be at it for a while. But the beginning steps are often important. You have to take one step, put one foot in front of the other. And in my humble opinion, the first thing is to get interested in positions of leadership. Scan the terrain and establish what is on the menu, what is available. Understand what your strengths are. Understand what your abilities are. Understand what you're capable of doing. Obviously, if you are aspiring for a position that does not bring out aspects of what you can do, then obviously you walk into a brick wall. But scan the terrain. Understand what you are capable of doing. If you think that you need to acquire some more skills, then you can equip yourself. Study things, learn on the job. The long haul that I talked about also means that you can start small. You can be a volunteer. You can take up positions where you support others. You can align yourself to people that are in authority, that they entrust you with roles that will bring out your potential, that will bring out what you are capable of doing, and ultimately people will identify and allow you to step in positions of leadership. So it is, I think, putting one foot in front of the other that will enable you to be able to thrive. But I think the most important thing for me is for you to thrive, rather to step out, aspire, avail yourself for positions of leadership, understand what positions they are, study the constitutive documents of these different organizations that you can be a part of, and understand what the pathway is to leadership. Most of these positions are determined at the annual General Assembly, and you need to be, I think, a member. Most of the time you have to be a member in good standing with maybe some kind of experience. You must also go out of your way to study and understand how these constitutive documents operate. But most importantly, align yourself to people that can, push you. Again, politics is a science, like people say. You have to be strategic in your approach for you to achieve results. You have to partner with people that will help propel you to positions of leadership. But my humble view is start small, scan the ground, understand what you want to do, assess your abilities, and then go for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your response. And I see we have additional questions from the participants. And the two questions are from Arvid. My apology if I'll read your name incorrectly. Arvid, his question is, how can we increase the sponsorship for the sports event? And what are the challenges in terms of conflict of interest and drafting clauses? And his next question is, what are the scope of research, in brackets, PhD in sports law, and what challenges are faced by researchers during data collection at international level? I think the questions are posed to any panels can chip in and answer the questions.
I think I can answer the question around how can one increase the sponsors for any sports events? And this is an interesting question. One of the things that we need to understand very clearly is sponsors are no longer looking at, just supporting you for the sake of supporting your event. So you need to show value. And so one, as a sporting entity, how are you constituted? How do you run your affairs? How do you interact with your stakeholders? And in this case, your players. How do you market yourself? Because a sponsor or a partner is not going to come on board unless they feel that, there's some sort of value. So, to answer that question, it's very hard for you to go out there and, go to different sponsors and say, come work with us, we have this, we have that, if you're not well constituted. The other thing that's really critical, and, I'll go back to that presentation, is media. How many people are you interacting with? Do you have that data? Do you understand who your clients are? And in this case, do you understand your fans? Do you understand their age dispensation? Are you reaching out to your fans' needs? Are you consistent? So if I'm a partner, do I want something for one event, or do I want something that, there's, are you going to guarantee me just one sport, or are you going to guarantee me some sort of consistency? So it's really also important to understand what are the values of the brands that you're reaching out to, and how do they align to the brands that you have as a sporting entity, and do your values align to these brands? So I could be a sporting event that's connecting with children, that is managing an under 14 basketball event, for example. Do I have 20% or 30% of under 14s in the country watching this event, or 2%? And if I'm guaranteed 20, 30, 40, 50%, how am I reaching them? Because the sponsor wants to know that. Then I say, okay, what are our values? If our event is for under 14-year-olds, what are our values? Can I approach Coca-Cola? No, I can't, because Coca-Cola and the Coca-Cola company do not market to children under 12 years old, under 12. So they will say, this is too close to this age group. We cannot touch on that. Maybe we can work with Fanta or whatever. So you might want many sponsors, but then you also have to understand, what are you delivering? What value are you delivering to these sponsors? How are you constituted? What are your values? And if you're able to answer these questions, then very confidently, you can sit and say, okay, I can approach A, B, C, D, and I'm able to get more sponsors. So I think I'm able to answer that part of the question. Maybe I would ask a lawyer to talk about what are the challenges in terms of conflict of interest and drafting clauses.
Thank you, Ms. Cynthia. Any panelists can chip in? Yes, any panelists?
Thank you so much once again. I think I was caught off guard there, but I think it's an issue of conflict of interest and drafting clauses. The biggest aspect of this part of the contracts are the interests involved. The first interest is the interest of the sportsman, the player himself. The second interest of this is a player that comes from a country, Kenya or South Sudan. The third interest is the interest of the club that is taking on the player. So it's playing in between the lines, because if somebody is representing the club, the Arsenal or the Man U club, and then the biggest part is the value in the player that will be of more interest here. If that person is for the player or for the host nation or the other country, then it's you look around those aspects, because this is someone being sacrificed or taking up a role or taking up an opportunity, or investing his interests or his energies, his skills into a sport. So there's a bigger part of that. But the conflict of interest that comes in here comes with the same three stakeholders, three parties. Because this is someone that was not found on the street, someone was found from a club, from a nation, going into another venture. So if you're trying to play around with the issue of conflict of interest in drafting these contracts, and then is to distinguish the disparities involved, because it's international, it's a venture, it's an agreement that involves those parties. So what are you trying to draw together here? You're protecting interests, three interests involved, and of course the stake of the subject. So what do you protect those interests against other interests? So if you are sitting in the foot of Arsenal, and then what are you protecting as a person, as an advisor or as a drafter? If you're sitting in the shoes of Phillips or sitting in the shoes of Cynthia, what are you protecting against the other two interests? If you're sitting in the shoes of Uganda, with a player being taken off by a club overseas, what is Uganda or the club that this player is going to, or is living and going to? So it's about interest here. The conflict of interest is about interests that are involved, and to avoid this, to split this interest, or to avoid conflicting here, you draw the standards of the specific targets of that person, of the interest of that particular person. So it's wider into the person that person is acting on, or the person that person's interest is being represented. Drafting clauses, the clauses are so many because the clauses that involve the game itself, the clauses that involve the trade, and the clauses that involve the business, which is the consideration that go in, what goes to the player, what goes to the club, and what goes back home, or what goes with the sponsors. So it's good to split the angles because these are drafters with major 4 or 5 interests involved on the same table. I'm negotiating for Liège, you're negotiating for the Arsenal, someone is negotiating for Nike, someone is negotiating for Kenya, and someone is negotiating for the investor in whatever way. So it's good to play around and see how best you to maneuver aspects of protecting an individual interest or a particular interest in that project, in that venture. I think there's something here on research also. Maybe Moses will add on that, but I think there's something on research also here. It's a wide topic, as sports is very wide. The aspects of the legal part here, the issue of contract involved, the international trade involved, the issue of personal injury involved, the issue of labor involved here, there's the issue of taxation involved. So you as a researcher, it's good to define what aspect do you want to research on. You want to try to research the specific or personal injury in contracts or in sports or international contracts. Do you want to investigate on taxation in sports, international sports contracts? Do you want to investigate on the issue of say aspects of consumer protection here? So it's you to drop a particular area, a gap that you want to fill as a researcher. And I believe if you look at sports law generally, you will end up not being able to address a problem. So draw up your interest in what you want to pursue. Are you pursuing the benefits or the interest of a player in a contract? Are you pursuing the issue of a player playing for Arsenal and gets injured and gets deformed for the rest of his life? What are you trying to investigate? So it splits into those aspects of the law that are involved in the sports law generally. Thank you.
Well, maybe I can shed some more light, Philip, from what you just said. And I think you've mentioned some of the topics. As we know, I think sports law has become a discipline. In fact, the jury is still out in some countries on whether it should be treated as such. But in sports law, Philip, as Philip indicated, there's many topics that one can write about for a PhD thesis. I think Adalia mentioned the organization of international sports federations. This can be a topic
Recording in progress.
of study. Intellectual property and image rights is also something that can be of interest. You can write about sports finance, and I think we've heard about aspects of that. Taxation. You can write about employment in sports. You can write about esports. Esports is a new area that is of interest. As I'm sure you've noticed, most of you might have, if you have a child or you know somebody with one, I'm sure you've noticed that children lately are into playing esports, which many of us in our generation were not very well accustomed to. So esports is something that has picked up, and it is something that not many people have written about, and particularly in Africa, where esports hasn't caught on as much as it has in the Western world. I think would be something of interest. Gender and sports is also of interest. As you know, gender has become a topic of discussion, and in recent times we had a big debate about Caster Semenya. You remember how she went to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. She lost that fight. She took it to the federal, to the Swiss Supreme Court. She still lost the fight. So there are issues about how people should integrate, especially if they've had gender switches, so that's a topic of very serious debate. In swimming, for instance, I can tell you that we've been struggling to accommodate how a transgender man can compete and a transgender woman can compete. I think athletics has, and maybe weightlifting. At these previous Olympics, I think we had 2 sporting disciplines that have allowed transgenders to participate. So gender and sports is another topic of lots of debate. I think there's been a lot of literature on sports dispute resolution. And I think Kenya has been a leader in the region as far as sports dispute resolution and mediation is concerned. but there's always still ways to write about it. In Africa, we need to find ways of bringing sports dispute resolution down to our levels. Most of the times when you talk court of arbitration for sport, for a local club or federation, you are speaking Gujarati. Many people won't be following what you're saying. So those things need to be broken down. And I think it can be an interesting topic for people to write on. Injuries, I think Phillips mentioned that. At some point, there was a big debate in the United States and I think other countries about the impact of certain sports on women. We've had reports from many people, especially boxers, former boxing athletes, learning that they get concussed after there's been many blows that have been. So injuries, again, is an area of interest. And of course, with such things come legal consequences. I'm sure many of you have watched the movie Concussion, which is which really can be scaring as far as injuries are concerned. And I think I recall that lately they've been discouraging girls and I think little boys from heading the ball too much because there's that feeling that it can affect their brain development and many things. So there are many topics. Of course, sports jurisdictions, again, if you think about our common law style of doing things, and then the civil law also that sometimes affects how different jurisdictions deal with their issues. So I think that the topics are wide and far, but allow me to stop here, Judith, and hand back to you. Thank you.
My apology. Thank you very much, all the panelists, for the wonderful presentation. Now, time is not our best ally for the moment. I would like to call upon all the panelists to give up your closing remarks. If we can have 2 minutes from each panelist, because we are out of time. I'll start with Moses because you're the last person to speak. Then we'll go ahead to the rest of the panelists before I do my closing remark and give the chair an opportunity to close in. Mr. Moses, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Judith. First of all, it's been a pleasant interaction for me. And I'm glad to have given my time, sharing my experiences. The topic of empowering women, creating new norms, to me is one I think that we should all embrace. And I'm glad that as this committee of the ELS, we have given time so that we can have a bit of discourse. I think, as I earlier indicated at the beginning, I'm very passionate at women involvement in not just sport, but all leadership at all levels. But for sport particularly, there's a right to play. Girls must be involved, they must be given those opportunities to participate in sports. There's many sports where which are dominated mostly by men, and I think we need to find inroads that allow us to encourage participation of girls. But particularly at a leadership level, I think the opportunities are many. Women always present an angle that enables us to resolve disputes better. Some people have said that the world is in trouble the way it is because there's very few women in positions of leadership. We have been blamed mostly for causing problems of the world. The world wars were mostly created by men. And so I think that women have got a role to play in helping us to organize the boardroom at sports level. The opportunities are many. We need ladies to step up to the task, as I said earlier, to storm the gates. Storm the gates with the appropriate regalia that will enable you to be able to get into the boardroom. And I think that question which Cynthia asked was to enable us to understand a practical way in which we can get into positions of leadership. So it's been an opportunity for me, and I'd like to thank you and now hand back.
Ms. Cynthia, you can just proceed.
Sure. Once again, I'd like to say a very big thank you to all of you for joining us today, and thank you for the opportunity to present. I think the one person who is presenting today who's a lady, who's a woman, is myself, and I've not mentioned anything to do with women. Because I'm so used to, being in this space. But maybe I can just share a little bit. It's very tough working in the male-dominated environment. But what I know is that when you're good at what you do, the respect comes. So you might need to jump 5, 6, 7 more hurdles than the men, but once you're consistent and you know what you're doing, it really shouldn't matter. I'd encourage all the ladies and the gentlemen who are here today to continue doing what we're doing. Africa is home. It is our time to make great strides for ourselves and for the youth. I really am thankful, and I can't wait to interact with all of you now and into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Philip, I think the floor is yours.
I think you need to unmute Philip.
Philip, can you please unmute? Okay.
Yeah, thanks once again, the team, the society, and of course our host entirely. It's been great meeting most of you and interacting on this major topic, this main topic. Of course, sports is it's a new thing now. I have 2 takeaways. It's a growing industry. It's a growing sector, and the society should take up a big step to champion it. I know we've been discussing about women in sports or sports opportunities for women in sports. More should have been done. I've seen them mention it, that she's the only person here now with us, apart from the moderators. I hope if this is built on, I mentioned earlier that if we can put sports law into our syllabus, it can be of importance. I know now you find people negotiate our players' contracts in most regions now. Lawyers being flown from outside the country, from the region, simply because we've not put emphasis on the sports law and the interests involved. I'll add that as we cultivate on this, it should be championed. It should be something that all of us get involved. I also believe, to make it practical, apart from it being theoretical, if we can make it real, like lawyers should get involved in sports. It should be a day off for sports playing around, for lawyers to play around and across the region, and then it will make it real that we're talking about sports law and we're doing it on the ground. So the next thing we want to hear from the East African Law Society is that the Uganda Law Society and the Kenya Law Society should be having a tournament for lawyers in the region, so that we see how this thing is real. Of course, with our work here, it's chaotic, it's troublesome, it's tense, too much work, and you need sports to relieve yourself. That's why if you see lawyers remaining outside the houses by 10 p.m., it's not because they don't want to go home. It's not because they're avoiding jam. But of course, after a hectic day that ends at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., you may want to find where you can watch European leagues or football, whatever football, to relieve your mind. So let's take it real, let's make it real, and let's build this sector. It has a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of things that need to be learned on here, and a lot of takeaways. Otherwise, thanks a lot, and hope to see some of you once again. I think my contacts, I can share them with some of you there. And Cynthia, you can share your contacts. It's good to learn more about this Connecting Africa sports, Connect Africa, or it's Africa Connect. And it's a big industry that a lot of things can be learned, and we can engage further on that. Thanks again. Have a nice afternoon, nice evening, and looking forward to engaging further.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, all the panelists. I would like to say thank you on behalf of Mr. Noel Shio, and another apology for the emergence and the crisis. But he said he had a wonderful session and looking forward to have another one in the near future. And from my side, I would like to say thank you for everyone for bringing in your expertise and your experience around the sports industry, sports area. And I'm sure we have a lot of participants who have learned a lot from you, and they're looking forward to venture in this new opportunity. I would like to also to say thank you to East Africa Law Society for granting us this opportunity to share our experience, to share our knowledge, and also to network with other women in this field. From my end, I would like to say thank you again for your time and your presentation. I wish you all good evening. To you, Madam Chair Lady. Thank you very much.
Again, we can't thank you enough, the panelists, for sharing your expertise and for giving us your insights. We shall definitely engage more in other forums. So with that, we have come to the end of this month's monthly law series. Thank you once again. Please remember, Corona is real. We are not yet out of the woods. So wear your masks, sanitize if you're not able to wash your hands, and social distance. Most of all, if you're in a position to get vaccinated, get vaccinated. So with that, have a good evening, everyone, and God bless you all. With that, we have come to the end of the webinar. Thank you, everyone.